And just like that, another big piece hits the portal from the Bruins, J.Michael Sturdivant.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this emergency breaking news edition of Locked On UCLA. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for your support. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, it's another big one offensively. Adding to the list of what is the top 5, top 6 transfer portal QB in Justin Martin. Adding to what's been the top receiver the last 2 years, that's Logan Loya, including TJ Harden, who is currently on the recruiting trail heading to Michigan State to take a visit. And, oh, by the way, Nicky Prongo's heading to the portal. It's none other than J.Michael Sturdivant, the former Cal Golden Bear, who was an absolute steal for UCLA, getting him prior to the 23 season. However, I think I can speak for all fans from UCLA, and we probably have to apologize to J.Michael Sturdivant because he has been the most underutilized option, deep threat receiving option UCLA's had the last 2 years, and the Bruins have just not been able to make it work. He's had an average of 16.5 yards per catch. I think that could have been even better. This year, dealing with a little bit of injuries to certain moments, dealing with the lackadaisical offense, UCLA just couldn't get a lackluster offense. It's craziness, right? He, in the last 2 seasons, totaled 24 games, made 58 catches, 912 yards, and had 6 receiving touchdowns, including a long of a 62-yarder back in 23. Averaged 38 yards for his UCLA career. And I think is one of those wonders throughout his 2 years, how come UCLA could not get him going? You saw the catches he made against USC that were just spectacular grabs. Absolutely spectacular. There are times he went up this year and just made some crazy good catches, like against Nebraska before he got a targeting hit towards his head that truly knocked him out. Then you had those great catches, 3 of which in crazy traffic against the Trojans that proved he is one of the best UCLA receivers they have had in quite a few years in the last couple of years. Of course, there's some that have gone to the NFL. You got Bobo. But J.Michael Sturdivant just seemed like, man, they could have gotten so much out of him. I'm not sure there's nothing I think that's Sturdivant's fault. I just think that's been a UCLA problem with Chip Kelly and Eric Bieniemy the last couple of years. But the Bruins are now losing 2 solid receiving options. I think the Bruins do have a lot of depth in the receiving room. You still have Rico Flores Jr., although Rico is not supposed to be available for UCLA until closer to the beginning of the season, like next September is what DeShaun Foster told the media prior to the end of the season. I love Quasi Gilmer. That is somebody who can help pick up the slack that is going to be missed from J.Michael Sturdivant leaving. And then Carter Shaw, that's somebody who I don't believe I've seen his name enter the portal yet, and it could change at any moment with all of these guys. He's a guy that, I think had some good moments in his first year at UCLA. The Bruins still have quite a few receivers. I know they didn't get one with Chase Brown going somewhere else, but UCLA, I'd like to believe, has a decent receiver room. But that is a lot of talent UCLA's leaving and losing. That is leaving to the portal with J.Michael leaving. He had a feast of a game against UCLA when he was at Cal. And the last 2 years, he's been somewhat of a deep threat option and only 2 touchdown catches. But he was a solid threat. And if he was going to stay at UCLA one more year, that would have been a huge weapon. But I can understand. Someone else might pay him a little more. He is going to be, if he goes, and if he doesn't go the NFL route, because he's been around the college game for quite some time, if he goes and finds a good home, he will be one of those standout receivers I think we see in 25 that is going to challenge for maybe being a leading receiver at a certain conference, wherever he heads. I don't think he goes group of 5. I think some Power 4 team, I think a good Power 4 team would absolutely take a flyer on this kid and just feed him the ball a lot more than UCLA was able to, and probably see a lot of good catches. Maybe you disagree. Maybe you think there are some drops in there that I think he had in early 23 that hurt him a little bit. I just think highly of his skill set and think UCLA was unable to get more out of him. Less than 1,000 yards in 2 seasons and 6 touchdowns is just bonkers. And I don't think that has anything to do with him. Now, If I get something that tells me otherwise, okay. But I just think UCLA really messed this up, having a kid, I think, this talented, as we saw in one of those last couple of games against USC where, man, that kid was good, and I wish we could have used him and seen the best, all right? Seen the absolute best out of him. And arguably, you could say his best performance we've seen him was against UCLA, but he is going to find a new home, and that means Tino Sunseri, he's got some work to do in the portal. DeShaun Foster and company got to go to find a quarterback. They've lost an offensive lineman in recent days with Nicky Prongos. They've got a couple of grads leaving. Man, UCLA's got to retool a little bit, all right? Indiana made their calling card hitting the portal, getting 31 commits. There is so much talent out there, right? Even USC's Deuce Robinson just hit to the portal, right? Maybe UCLA says, hey, come across town. Don't listen to anything Kyle Force said. Come to UCLA, obviously, because there's a different coach, different system, completely different vibe than it was 2 coaches ago, 2 offensive coordinators ago. Maybe UCLA goes and takes a, hey, why don't we go get some Deuce Robinson because that kid was pretty good. All right? There's plenty of good receivers. So even though they're going to lose Sturdivant, if UCLA wants to make getting a receiver of a certain skill set a priority, it just sucks that they're losing 2 key pieces that were pretty solid in Loya and Sturdivant going elsewhere. All right, Loya hurts from he's a slot guy. He's been there so long. Could have been that veteran option to just teach guys and get another offense. Hey, this is how we're going to grind through the dog days of August, through spring practice and heading into fall ball. Sturdivant, that deep threat that anytime he's in the game can blow it right past you, or if he's going on a crossing route, make a tough catch in traffic like he was doing towards the end of his UCLA career. It is sad to see quite a lot of pieces go, but hopefully there's a plan, there's a procedure, there's something that UCLA is going to bring in, because they can't just let all these guys go that schools are going to be salivating over between the TJ Hardens, between the J.Michael Sturdivants and the Loyas, Justin Martin in some aspect, and Nicky Prongos. All these guys are going to find homes and probably compete for starting positions at their new homes. Loya and Sturdivant for sure. TJ Harden for sure. Prongos will find somewhere. And we will learn a lot about what UCLA, I think, thought about Justin Martin. Depends on where he goes. If Justin Martin signs with the Power 4, then UCLA might have lost something. If he signs with a group of 5 and he flourishes, then maybe he needed a chance to play a different offense, and UCLA said, hey, maybe it's not for you. All right, but that is quite a bit of offensive talent leaving. There is a lot of walk-on talent, a lot of rarely used defensive talent, just like the incoming one-year Collins Achampong came in, and some DBs that were rarely used. So they're not losing as much defensively to the portal, considering what they're bringing in and hopefully what they can bring in via the defensive line in the portal as well. And then the other thing, too, Pete Thamel, some other news, Pete Thamel of ESPN, reported the Bruins are making a change in defensive line coaches, probably. They're probably going to go after what I believe to be Fresno State's current D-line coach, which would be Jethro Franklin. And that would mean UCLA is either repurposing their current D-line coach or moving him to, a more specified category, and UCLA is just expanding their coaching staff. But Pete Thamel said, according to certain sources, UCLA is going after their Fresno State's D-line coach to add it to another defensive coaching change, which hopefully means that this is something being talked about from Ikaika Malloy's perspective, which means he's staying and he's making his own choices to have somebody coach the D-line so he can focus on scheming a defense with a completely different defense that he's coached from the few years he's been at UCLA for Malloy. So hopefully that's good things. If they're making their own choices, he can have more control over the staff. The Bruins are making things happen from a DB perspective, from a D-line perspective. UCLA's brought in a new coordinator. So staff changes continue to grow for UCLA in addition to the offensive weapons heading to the portal. Until UCLA starts getting some big options, we're going to keep talking about it on Locked On UCLA, all right? We talked about earlier today what they need from the portal. Maybe Malik Murphy's that quarterback. He's still got some guys to throw to if the Bruins go after him. He's a top-tier quarterback as a 4-star transfer. Get some O-linemen and maybe get another receiver now that they've lost 2 key pieces to the UCLA offense. Big blow, but hopefully the Bruins can go recover and grab somebody in the portal. But you got to get somebody who's going to throw them the ball first and be protected to throw them the ball. And until then, DeShaun Foster and company, their new recruiting team, have got to get to work. I believe in them. They've been able to get some guys. Now, can the bag be big enough for these guys coming in the portal to UCLA? Chip Kelly proved you can get talent in the portal. Now, does DeShaun Foster and company have the ability and the scouts to go get somebody to come to UCLA? Only time will tell. Only time will tell. All right, here we go. FanDuel, it's America's #1 sports book. If you want to go get in on the action with the NFL, other sports, everything, go check out FanDuel. Because if you're a new customer, you bet $5, you get $150 in bonus bets. Once again, if you get and have a $5 bet, you win it, you can get $150 in bonus bets to use for your FanDuel account. So go check it out if you're a new customer, FanDuel.com. If you got a hunch, you can make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, that's going to do it for this quick, short breaking news emergency reaction edition to J.Michael Sturdivant leaving UCLA and intending to head into the transfer portal. Best of luck to him. Best of luck to all these guys. And hey, I'm going to say this now. These guys can still come back after being swayed by DeShaun Foster or by the new OC with a new promise, a new plan to utilize him or any of those guys better. All right. UCLA already convinced a couple of guys last year to come from the portal back to UCLA on numerous occasions. At least 3 for UCLA were able to do that. Some very talented pieces, some key pieces for UCLA's offense this last season and on the defense with big man Jay Tuia. So there's still a possibility he could come back, any of these guys. But for now, UCLA is looking elsewhere. And so are these players as well. More power to them. Best of luck. Until then, 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.